Our next guest has known Republican VP pick Paul Ryan since the day he was born. He has shared a bedroom with him. He has rivaled him in marathons, and he still lives just a block away back in Wisconsin. We are talking to Paul's older brother, Tobin Ryan. He is joining us now where he is on the campaign trail with Paul in Colorado Springs. Hey there, Tobin.
Hi, Wendy. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for being with us. Now, you are on the campaign trail with your brother. Back in Wisconsin, you work in private equity. How much of your days now are spent with your brother, and what kinds of jobs is he tossing to you on the trail?
Well, since Tampa, I've been traveling with him, and I doubt this is going to be a regular role for me. But when you're surrounded by all of the family for 3 intense days, we felt pretty bad letting him go off on his own. Jana had to get back to Wisconsin and time to get the kids back in school. So I volunteered to tag along for this week. But I'm back to my day job on Monday. Back to
your day job on Monday. Your kids have been with you. What have they liked most about the experience of being with you and with their uncle?
Well, everybody was there in Tampa, and obviously for kids. It's electrifying. It's fun. Paul's kids in particular really enjoyed the balloons when they dropped, and so they were kind of hoping there'd be more balloon nights.
And I hear they're obsessed with the Secret Service. What's up with that?
My son in particular. So when they came to our hometown of Janesville, which certainly is a pretty big deal, he went out of his way to meet every single one of them. And we thought he was going to be an engineer or an architect. He loves to build things, and now he says he'd like to be part of the Secret Service. So we'll see.
Did you watch the Democratic National Convention last night when Bill Clinton was speaking? Were you with your brother when that was going on?
We were on an airplane. But we're able to certainly catch a bunch of excerpts when we landed, and it was, from what I saw, it was quite a speech. He's a very talented speaker.
I got to ask you this, as the older brother, you're 5 years older, often I'm sure growing up having been in the position of defending your younger brother. When you hear someone like Bill Clinton on a national stage like that, or anyone for that matter, taking a few shots at your younger brother there, and at one point even saying it takes some brass tacks, some brass to attack a guy like that, referring to your brother and what he said about Obama on Medicare. How do you feel as an older brother when you hear someone going after your younger bro?
We're big boys, and Paul's been, he's not a complete rookie at this. He's a guy that 5 years ago put his own plan out there. Even within the previous administration. So he's used to getting put a little bit in the spotlight, and no longer do I worry about Paul. If I'm going to worry about someone, I'm going to worry about my mom or my aunt or someone like that. But Paul loves this. He loves the fact that the country is seeing a proper debate of these ideas. And I think the term arithmetic was used last night, and I found it humorous, and I think the country did as well, and it's a term that I'm sure Paul will enjoy using as well.
Oh, come on, but Tobin, you never throw something at the TV screen when you hear somebody say something about your brother. I mean, he is your younger brother after all.
Not at all.
No?
And I personally respect all the people that are in public service and all those that have ideas to put on the table, and we understand that this is part of the process, and Mitt Romney and Paul Ryan are fair game, and frankly, I think the more their message gets out, the more it's resonated with America.
Now let's dig in a little bit to what your younger brother was like when you guys were growing up. You had to share a room with him, I understand, and there was some interesting decor that happened as a result.
Yes. So we shared a bedroom. We had bunk beds.
Were you on the top or the bottom?
I think I was on the top. We were too afraid Paul would roll out and crash.
Good point.
But into my teenage years, I had him to blame for the fact that we did have, wallpaper that was more, befitting of a young guy. So So I think we had, clouds and birds and maybe the solar system. So, my bedroom wasn't the best hangout when I was 13.
Yeah, I was going to say, as you're entering your teen years with clouds and birdies on the wall, I don't know. How does that work with when you were getting the girls? Speaking of girls, who was better at landing girls, you or your brother?
I don't think either one of us claimed to be very good at that. But I tell you, we're both, desperately in love with our wives, and they keep us humble and honest.
Let me ask you this. You at one point sort of had to keep your brother in check and call him when he was talking about his marathon time. He misspoke and said he had run a marathon, I think, in just under 3 hours, when the reality was it was over 4, and he,
Yes.
corrected himself. But he said you corrected him. Do you take pride in the fact that you're the fastest marathon runner?
Absolutely. An embarrassing moment for him was a good laugh for me. And I'm not going to let him live that down. I'm a guy that's, properly trained for a marathon and actually had to achieve a certain time to qualify for Boston. And Paul back, when he was 20, trained for 3 or 4 weeks and ran this thing on a whim. And if he's going to recollect a time, recollected an ordinary time. He had no idea what he was saying, and he won't live that down, that's for sure.
And you will not let him down. Let him live it down. What else do you kid him about? What else, do you, like when you're teasing him, when you guys are sitting around the dinner table, what do you go after him about?
I think the normal brotherly things. When we're together and it's dinner and we're with family, it's politics is not the topic. It's what are the kids up to? And it's usually funny stories about them. Can you believe what his son Sam did, or my daughter Murray, or something like that? But I did remember a funny story, which I haven't told anyone, and Paul would be probably embarrassed by this. It was sometime in this last year, and it was he was at the grocery store. It's probably on a Saturday, his normal garb of blue jeans and a Green Bay Packer hat. And an older woman saw him pass her in the aisle, and of course looked at him and said, "Oh my gosh, I've seen you on TV before. My husband would love to meet you." And Paul's like, "Well, sure, I'd love to." So she calls her husband over. He comes running up, and she goes, and so Paul reaches out his hand and says, "Hi, I'm Paul Ryan." And she looks at him, kind of dumbfounded and a bit disappointed, and says, "I thought you were Aaron Rodgers."
Oh, no. Oh my gosh. And he told you this story.
It was hilarious.
Speaking of Green Bay, speaking of the hat he was wearing, do you guys root for the same sports teams?
We do, very much so. Packers is religion. It was growing up in our household. That was the Sunday event, and it continues in his family and mine today. There's no doubt about it.
Now let me ask you this: in 1988, it was the yearbook came out, and your brother got tagged with the moniker of biggest brown noser. Fair or not fair?
It must have been fair. So my cousin Adam, I think, got most likely to succeed, and so I have a feeling the editorial board were debating on which one to ascribe to each.
And how was he in sports when he was growing up? I know he's big into P90X, which is a super hardcore workout routine. He's gotten other members of the house into it. But what about growing up? Was he wimpy? Was he kind of a big stud? What would you say?
He was not a big stud. I think any team that Paul was on, he would always get that hardest worker award. And that's certainly the way he was in soccer. He played sweeper. He was very effective, probably not with a lot of finesse, but he was very effective as a sweeper. And he'd be the guy at halftime when they were down 3-0, where the coach would step back and he would step up and he'd give the speech to get the team motivated to get out there in the second half. But I know and Paul's a tremendously fit guy. And we all are, but the serious side of it is, we don't benefit from the best heart health in our family, given our dad and
Right.
and our grandfather dying in their 50s, and so this is all. This is all an effort to live a long time, and certainly Paul takes that very seriously.
Do you do P90X yourself, Tobin?
I put on a pair of shoes or hop on a bike or jump in a pool more than not. But he drags me into it occasionally, and I try to keep up, but hardly can.
You mentioned your parents earlier, referring to your father. Your parents, from what I've read, were not that partisan themselves. They even supported some Democrats while you all were growing up. Where do you think your brother Paul got his conservative leanings from?
Yeah, you probably can't pin it on one thing, but he certainly grew up in a Main Street USA kind of values, real strong role models, and in our mom and dad. They weren't particularly political, and I remember support for some Democrats. I do recall quite vividly them being quite inspired by Ronald Reagan, and I expect that had a little bit of influence on Paul. But really, Paul was a guy who focused early, a prolific reader, academic, and I really saw it culminating, really under the years when he was with Jack Hemp, where his philosophy began to really hone, and he brought that philosophy, that understanding of the world and economics. He brought that back into our hometown and our first district, and even in his very first campaign, where he was really espousing how to protect Social Security at the time, more take home for families. Those sorts of ideas are the same things that he's certainly promoting today.
Tobin, you are the bigger brother. Often you probably used to taking the lead on things in the home. Is there anything you don't agree with policy-wise with your brother?
I obviously my policy views are my own, and when it comes to Paul and me, the apples probably didn't fall that far from the tree. I'm just proud. He's got such a reform mindset. He's gone out on a limb so many times, regardless of which administration is in power, and he's not a ladder climber. This isn't about his glory. He is very, very purposeful, and he sees this as the most important cause of his life.
So, Tobin, when you disagree with him, because it sounds like in some cases you do, how does he react?
Paul is his own man. He's very, very principled. He's passionate about his ideas. And I'm never going to try to sway him from those principles and those ideas.
And where he stands on the social issues, do you stand with him on those?
Yeah, my own personal views are probably not important to this race. I'm very, very proud of Paul and what he's doing right now, and the ideas that he's taken to the country.
And if he were elected and moved, and it goes to Washington D.C., you live so near him now, would you consider picking up and going to D.C. to stay near him and keep your families near each other?
No, I don't think I would ever consider that. And we love Janesville, Wisconsin. We're raising our kids there. We'll do our very, very best to keep our lives and our kids very integrated. Obviously, that could become more challenging, but you can take Paul out of Wisconsin, but I don't think you'll ever take the Wisconsin out of him.
All right, leave us with one word to describe your brother, Tobin.
Authentic.
All right.
Optimistic.
Tobin Ryan, thanks so much for joining us.
My pleasure. Thank you, Wendy.